Alrighty. So, if you watched my stream earlier this morning, I finally went and beat Dragon's Dogma 2 at like 9 a.m. It is currently 11:26 p.m. I just spent like the last, I would say, 20 minutes just quickly writing down my thoughts about it. Not really. Uh, didn't go too in depth, but I also did. You guys know how my reviews typically are. Just a list of pros and cons, and then like my final score, and then maybe me going on a rant or something about that. Um, so typically I start with pros. I'm gonna start with cons. Uh, for this, I didn't have much actually. I really enjoyed Dragon's Dogma 2. There was only a few things, but it was mostly just like reasonable things why like they did what they did, Um and I mean some things weren't really explained and some things are kind of like just a game design choice that just eh. Um like my thoughts are on the questing. The stories behind most of the quests were good. Um and like they really fleshed out the world and fleshed out characters and areas. Um, but I will say there is a lot of fetch quests and traveling between two areas quite frequently, like from one side of the map to the next, and or just traveling from 2 points in the same city multiple times to have conversations with different people, which happens a lot in RPGs. There's always fetch quests and a lot of going back and forth, mostly to kind of push exploration and to do certain things. Um, like for example, for sure, for obvious reasons, a lot of the the charm of Dragon's Dogma 2 is the very polished combat and the vocations and whatnot. And the only way to really flesh out vocations or unlock vocations or do things like that is by gaining discipline points. So obviously a lot of the quests would either be fetch quests or going across the map like back and forth twice or even 3 times. Um so you're pushed into more combat situations because that's where the game really shines, is the combat and the exploration, because it leads more to combat encounters or unique encounters and also chests and secret tokens. Um so I understand why a lot of them are fetch quests and a lot of it's like back and forth. Still kind of sucks. Because there was a lot of points in the game where I was just like, I mean, I don't want to do this quest because it's gonna drag me from this point to this point, and I don't want to use my fairy stones at this moment because I don't know how much I'm gonna need them, right? And so there was a lot of moments where I was like, I don't want to do this. Happens a lot in RPGs where like you're doing stuff, especially ones with different forms of fast travel that are a bit more tedious to use. Granted, they had the same fast travel system in DD1, and I loved it. It's not bad. I like running around. I like exploring maps. And it's not like they don't give you fast travel at all. There's port crystals that you can earn or get in game, and or based on to use said port crystals. Um, Granted, it might be a good 10-15 hours before you get your first port crystal. Either whether it's just by naturally exploring without a guide and or it'd probably take you 3 hours honestly to get the first one that you want or need. If you look up a guide on how to get certain port crystals, granted there's like maybe easier ones to find as well. So it's not too bad. You kind of get port crystals gradually. Granted, you don't get the full 10 by the end of the game, so you probably won't get 10 until the end of your second playthrough. Um, but I didn't mind the traveling. I know didn't mind the exploration. Those were honestly my favorite bits. I will say that this isn't really a big much of a gripe because by the end of the game, I didn't really use up too much storage in my storage chest, the player chest. Compared to DD1's 7,000 item limit of storage, it kind of sucks only have 1,000, especially with um the three or four ways to upgrade, like different upgrade paths for your gear. And there's a lot of gear in the game as well, especially between the vocations. And unless you're selling your old gear, which I don't do because typically, right, if you're leveling your pawn, there might be a point where maybe say you want to run you and your pawn as thieves. You might not have the top line gear for the same vocation because either you don't have the gold or the upgrade materials to upgrade the gear to a specific level. So you might have like lower level gear for your pawn. So obviously you don't put all your good shit on your arisen. So not having space for a lot of it. Granted, by the end of my first playthrough, my just about 50-hour playthrough, I only used like 380. But like another con I had was the small stack size for materials. Certain ones, I think everything besides worm life crystals have a stack limit of 99 in your storage. Granted, it makes sense because compared, I would say, to DD1, the combination system of materials is a lot more, I wouldn't say streamlined, but there's a lot less you can combine and make compared to in DD2, where not every material is usable for different like potions or stuff like that. I mean, it makes sense. There was an overabundance of stuff you can make in the first game that didn't make sense to be making because a lot of times you just didn't use it. That's why you just toss it in your storage. Probably also why the storage was like 7,000 in that game. But you run into the problem where not a lot of your gear, especially. Oh, sorry. I'm getting tired. It's now nearing 11:30. And I'll have to be up by 3. But anyways, back to what I was saying. If say you only play one vocation, you're not interested in leveling other vocations, you're gonna stack up on materials fast because you're not gonna be upgrading every weapon you come across. Because maybe every 5 hours, give or take, for a specific vocation, might you run into an item like a weapon or a gear piece that is better than the stuff you have on. And obviously not every gear piece has the same materials that are needed to upgrade it. So certain materials may build up over time, especially if you're exploring a lot and actually going things on foot instead of using ox carts all the time and or using your fairy stones like I was doing. I was running around doing a lot of stuff. I maxed out 2 different forms of goblin horns and also beast skin. So the small stack size kind of sucks. And also the fact that those items aren't really very much usable for a lot of stuff. And then compared to the first game where you had 8 skills, well, there might have been 6 skills. I can't remember one of the buttons. This was like a dodge or like a specific thing for that vocation. 6 skills, you only have 4, which kind of sucks. Because there's a lot of good skills for each of the classes, but also like it gives you the fact that you can freely change your skills quite frequently by using campsites and things like that is nice. So it's not that big of a deal. It just kind of sucks. It makes sense why there isn't 6 skills or more. Like you're not able to carry uh more skills at once. And also like the Meister skills are kind of overpowered. So like having one Meister skill and 5 other regular skills, or potentially even some classes have 2 Meister skills. It'd be kind of overpowered certain vocations to have more than 4 skills. And then like my final con is the lack of world lore. Granted, you can learn a lot about the world you're in by talking to other characters. Only mainline NPCs though. A lot of the other NPCs only give you like 1 or 2 liners that aren't really do much. And the notes you find in the game are only mostly based around the quests. I wish there were books in the game you could read that can help build the lore, and or I can't remember if armor pieces have a description of some kind of like Dark Souls. I can't remember. I would have to play again. But it doesn't really build much on the world. Granted, in DD1 it had the same problem. Granted, the story was I would say a bit more interesting in the first one. The second one story, the main story is interesting in its own way compared to the first one. In the second one, you're more of an underdog, trying to uproot, you know, the bad guys. Compared to where the first one, you are like the main line, you're the hero. Everyone worships the Arisen. Granted, everyone worships the Arisen in the second one, but you're not known as the Arisen. Like over time, you tell people you are, and people, come to believe that you are the true Arisen compared to the one in the castle. I just wish there was more world lore. Like for example, Sigurd. It doesn't really explain where he's from. I know he used to be a Arisen. I think it doesn't fully say that he used to be an Arisen, or anything like that. Now we're gonna move on to my pro list. All the vocations feel different and significantly change how you play the game and also how gameplay feels. So there's a lot of replayability there, and also like the ability to change up how you like. Maybe you're bored after 10 hours with the vocation you are using, then you change it up. There's a lot of playability and the ability to change things, which is nice. I mean, it had the same thing in the first game, but obviously, it's still welcome that they kept the same system. Rip to Mystic Knights, like most people were saying, but I think the Mystic Spear Hand is an okay replacement. It's not the best compared to probably Mystic Knight. I'll probably maybe do a ranking video of the vocations. But I'd have to actually play all of them. I still have yet to play all of the vocations. I'll probably do that in my free time. I kind of touched base with the story, the main story. I kind of liked it. It wasn't bad, but it wasn't great either. It was just good. And the stories of the quests, like I said, were probably the best part of the quests for the most part. It's just the act of doing the quests was tedious. Lots of like running back and forth. Like I said, And I talked about how traveling between locations is fun. Because the world is full of monsters. There's like things hidden around every corner. The chests, the seekers tokens. There's caves and dungeons to find. Um, little hidden stories as well, quests and whatnot. Um, and it just allows a lot of unique moment-to-moment encounters that you don't really get in other RPGs typically. Um, and a lot of that is accredited to the very streamlined and polished combat that they worked really hard to improve upon from the first one, which they succeeded like explosively. Honestly, I've never had as much fun fighting monsters than I have in quite a few years since I last played Skyrim. Honestly, in an RPG sense, I would say this is kind of on par with Skyrim, in my opinion. Granted, I will say the story in Skyrim is a lot better, and the combat in Dragon's Dogma 2 is better than Skyrim's combat. Um, Granted, you can mix things around and whatnot in Skyrim. I will say that Dragon's Dogma 2, the combat is just more fun because a lot of Skyrim is you just kind of fall into either stealth archer or just stand and swing your sword at an enemy for like 5 minutes. Um, with this, if you feel like you're creating impacts, you're doing damage because monsters will flinch in a way that is noticeable. If you attack a weak point enough of a specific monster, they'll reel from it and like grab that area. I will say the true ending location in the game is amazing. The Unmoored World, it adds so much more to explore. I didn't spend a lot of time. I kind of rushed through it, um, because I wasn't sure how much time I had in the world. I was literally just pumping out all heal elixirs to explore as much as I can and do as much because I heard slight rumors of like having only like a 10-day limit or something to finish everything, and I wanted to finish everything. I didn't explore as much as I kind of wanted. I didn't explore the like Arbor area um in the forest or stuff like that. Granted, you can go too far because and if you get too close to Melv, you get like pulled into the brine in the air. I don't know. It was weird. Um but the fact that like all the water recedes and disappears and opens up this whole area, it was amazing to see that happen and to have these new enemies to fight and um like these stronger enemies. It was just great. It was like I think the greatest point in the game, the turn of the game. I will say that the monsters drop a lot of materials for upgrading. Granted, like I was talking about earlier, the small stack problem is kind of an issue, and also the lack of uses for a lot of materials besides just upgrading your gear. Granted, it seems like upgrading your gear at any of the 4 different upgrade paths will change the materials you need for that upgrade for your gear, which is awesome. And touching base with the upgrades, the 4 different ways you can upgrade your gear is great. It adds different playability, and changes how maybe you might play, and if changes how maybe you build your vocation. Maybe you like using more magic orientated gear, so leveling up the magic stats might be the best thing you need to do. So it's nice. It adds a lot of like flavor. It just again runs into the issue of having lack of storage, player storage. especially if you want to do like a full set of Vermund gear, a full set of Batal gear, a full set of the Elven gear, or the full set of Dwarven gear. Like, mm, um, it kind of limits what you can do, which kind of sucks. But overall, I still really think the way you upgrade is amazing and adds a lot of flavor. Again, there's a lot of weapons and armor in the game, which is great. Granted, there'll be times where you just kind of run into a spot where like you find new armor, but it's not better than what you have, because you can pretty much just go to the farthest point in the game, before the true end game area, and purchase the best gear that you can get. Granted, it costs like 75,000 gold, so it might not be viable at like the first few hours of the game. It takes a while to earn. It doesn't take a while to earn gold. Obviously, if you're exploring the higher level areas, gold drops more frequently, at higher quantities, and also the quests that you do in those higher level areas give you more gold. I will say that the enemy variety is a lot better in this game compared to the first game. Even though it may seem like a lot of the enemies are the same, like the goblins are the same, but they're like different races of goblins. They do different things. The way they attack is different compared to in the first game. All the goblins fight the same. All the wolves fight the same until you get into the Everfall stage and you get hellhounds that spit fire at you. In this one, there's like different saurians, there's different goblins, and they all look different and fight differently compared to what you might have seen in the first game. So there's a lot of enemy variety. Just a lot of people don't notice it, because a lot of times you kill the enemies pretty fast, so you don't really take time to appreciate the way they attack or the different weaknesses, because honestly, if it bleeds, it will die. So stabbing it overall endlessly will kill it. So you don't have to really worry too much about weaknesses too much. I will say the like accessories, the rings, they provide a lot of gameplay benefits. Kind of like in the first one, they really round out how you build your vocation, how you build your character, you or your pawn. And the fact that they have full negation rings for different status effects is great. So, and honestly, you could change your rings on the fly. So if you're in the middle of a battle and say you're fighting saurians that are poisonous, you can toss on a blight negation ring and you won't get poisoned, which is fantastic. There's like a lot of ways to circumvent stuff, and rings are the best version of that. I found that swapping into New Game Plus after beating the game the first time is very easy and not difficult to do. It's very smooth, and the fact that it lets you keep all your gear, your levels, your gold, your rift crystals is very similar to the first game and starting a new game. But it's still nice that it is so smooth. And obviously you have to do all the, same kind of quests again and whatnot. But no, you can do it with overpowered gear. Fantastic. The open world is full of life, and there's a lot to discover. I kind of already touched base with this, with like chests and secret tokens, and the monster density, which is fantastic. It's really good for a game like this where you can change your vocation and to gain the points you need to upgrade said vocation and or unlock skills. It's good to have a lot of enemies to fight, because that's the only way you're gonna gain the points you need to unlock stuff. So it makes sense that there's a lot of monster density in that. Like every 5 seconds, every 10 steps you take, there's more monsters to kill. Some people disliked it from what I've seen, but honestly, in my opinion, it's probably the greatest asset to the game, and also it makes sense why it's there. And maybe some people haven't really taken the time to think about that. And the fact that you can just go off and explore. You can spend hours just exploring, running across the world, fighting enemies. And also the fact that you can go from the first area in the game all the way to the hardest area in the game from the start without doing any of the story quests is amazing. That's fantastic, with the fact that you can just whoop, gone and go do what you want to do. I mean, granted, you have to get to the point where you can travel where you want, but you literally could walk to the hardest area in the game besides the end game area and fight ridiculously difficult enemies because you're not leveled or you don't have gear. And the fact that you can do that is amazing. A lot of open worlds don't do that. They either lock areas off with like stupid things like a rock slide. You can't get past this until you beat like a story mission. But the fact that you can go from the start to the end area super quick within like the first 6 hours of the game without actually really progressing the story that much is fantastic. Elden Ring did that. And a lot of people ended up in Caelid when they shouldn't have been, and a lot of people went and spent hours in Caelid fighting enemies they weren't strong enough to beat. And it's amazing that you can do that. A lot of RPGs don't. There's some weird fog or something blocking you from going past a certain point. It sucks. I will say the Sphinx quest is honestly the coolest quest. And the fact that like the rewards are amazing. And they kind of require you to think. I will say fuck finding you the first location that you placed the first location you found your secret token. That was shit. Sadly I didn't complete the Sphinx quest fully to get the eternal wake stone. I fucked up. I didn't get the second set of the second location finished. Kind of sucks, but the fact that it's there and the fact that the quest really requires you to think out of the box, and most people probably used a guide to finish it completely in a correct way, like I did the same thing. But the fact that that quest would require a lot of thinking and figuring out, if the internet didn't exist, kind of like Elden Ring, that same approach of like trying just no hand holding, just figuring things out, it's fantastic. It's my favorite part. Obviously I use the guide. I don't really regret using a guide. I'm not the type of person that gets upset by spoilers. But honestly, the Sphinx quest felt like playing Elden Ring for the first time. Just that like sense of exploration. I initially wanted to do the quest without looking anything up, but I was worried about missing out on something because I read that she will just disappear, like fly off if you fuck up. And I was like, no, I can't fuck up. I want these items. I still fucked up, but that is what it is. And the fact that you can buy a home to circumvent the inn costs in two of the biggest cities, Batal and Vermouth, is fantastic. Granted, there is like a rich residence that doesn't really add anything that you can buy for 200,000 gold. Kind of pointless. Just go for the 20,000 gold home that you get from completing the one house sitting quest. I would like to say the camping is great. That's a great additive, is the camping, especially since they made it to where potions and healing stuff won't regain your lost gauge unless it's an all heal elixir, which I think is honestly the best move. There wasn't really any point in DD1 where I felt like I couldn't just suck down potions to make it through a fight. Granted, you can still do the same thing in DD2, especially with the small window of time you have before you hit the ground dead to pause and slam potions down to recover the health that you're missing. The addition of Meister skills to like the special skills for each vocation is amazing. They didn't have that in the first one, and the fact that they took the time and added quest lines for each of the vocations that do that, and or not really, some of them didn't really have a quest line, more just like you had to think to figure out what you needed to do. Like with Lux with the trickster class, that she was actually on top of the monastery. But having those is great. They really add to each vocation to make them truly unique. And the fact that the Warfarer vocation won't let you use them, but you can use any other skill from across all of them and change your weapons on the fly is fantastic and amazing. And you can wear any armor you want. Like, that class is like that vocation is the best endgame vocation, just for that fact alone. Because granted, the Meister skills are great, they're powerful, they add a lot to a vocation, but they're not necessarily like, they're not really necessarily so good that you should tie yourself down to one of the main vocations. I mean, you can if you want. I mean, that's your choice. I didn't even get to the Warfare yet because I wanted to max out every other vocation to get all the skills and augments to make my version of the perfect Warfare class for myself. And that's probably not going to be something I get to until my second playthrough. Granted, I could have done this review after my second playthrough, but I didn't because honestly, there's no reason to push it back. I put 50 hours into the game. I'm happy with it. I'll probably put more in, probably off stream. I'll probably just label the playlist as finished. And then if I want to stream it, I will, and just stream me playing it overall. But if anything, I'll probably be playing it a lot off stream in my free time. But honestly, that's about it. I will be giving it Dragon's Dogma 2 a 9.4 out of 10. For right now, it is my Game of the Year choice. A lot of people won't say that it's theirs and that there's a lot of problems with the game, but in my opinion, I really enjoyed it. And the problems I had with the game are probably vastly different compared to other people's. And also like the fact I love playing RPGs, so there's a lot of things that I'm just like, oh, that's part of the course. That's just an RPG thing. Some people who play other genres more frequently or play all the like the popular game of the moment, they might say that the things they run into, especially if they're not like an avid RPG fan, there might be certain RPG aspects that they either have something against because they haven't played RPGs a lot and there's just something they ran into and they're like, man, I don't like this. Or they just don't understand that it's just kind of something that happens with RPGs. Because they haven't played them as much. Nothing against that. You know, play what games you enjoy and have fun with. Otherwise, you guys have a good rest of your morning, night, whichever it may be. And toodles. I will see you in the next video and or stream. Bye bye for now.